This is your host, Laura Winters, the heart-led pathfinder, intuitive energy healer, speech-language pathologist, and owner of Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness, LLC. Welcome to Miracle in Time, a mini-series podcast that brings you the stories of beautiful humans exploring the synchronicities, blessings, and miracles within our perception of time. It illustrates that events are not just happening to us, but for us. Life isn't always rainbows and butterflies, but it is a miracle in time. As a disclaimer, this podcast contains general information about various topics and medical conditions and is for educational purposes and inspiration only. Your Light Holistic Therapy and Wellness LLC is not responsible or liable for the accuracy of information contained in this podcast. The information contained in this episode is the personal views of the host and guests respectively. This podcast is not meant to replace the advice of your healthcare provider and is not intended to prescribe, prevent, treat, or diagnose disease. You assume all risks when you continue this episode. I am really excited to talk to my next guest, Julia. I came across her on a Facebook post, actually, in our town's Facebook page. Someone had asked about tongue tie release. And so I said, hey, I had an experience with this. If you're you can private message me to ask questions. And Julia here had a ton of information that was so good. And I was like, wait a second, she actually knows what she's talking about. So I sent her a message and we've been kind of chatting and I was like, I really need to talk to her. So thank you, Julia, for talking with me.
You're welcome. It's great to be here. So I'm excited.
Good. So first off, tell people about you.
All right. I am a longtime Northwest Ohio resident. Spent most of my time here, grew up in the area, met my husband at high school. He showed up for one semester and then relocated back to Charlotte, North Carolina. So it was one of the typical short connections, but then we life brought us back together about 15 years after graduating. And I can't do math. Sorry. It's Monday, Tuesday, and I can't do math yet in the week. But we got married in 2015. I relocated to Charlotte for a year and a half, and then God's sense of humor pulled us back up here to Northwest Ohio. We have two beautiful kids, a Great Dane, and then I own a couple horses. So that's and we are big sports fans in this family. Like my son's in lacrosse and baseball and karate and picking up soccer on another team. So I don't know what end is up at this point in time between practices and games right now.
Yes, life gets so busy with all the sports stuff. I can't. My husband coaches basketball, and so it's ending up starting to be like a year-round thing. And so I can't even imagine thinking about adding my own kids' stuff in there as well. It's like, I can't right now. It's just not possible.
We were there a few years ago. My husband stepped out of coaching junior high football, and he was like, I can either focus on our kids or we can focus on my coaching career that's part-time in junior high, and he chose the kids.
I love that.
Yep.
And funny enough, this weekend I've been called to horses, and so this weekend I was driving through Pokagon, Indiana, and where they have their state park, and they do guided horseback riding trails. So I did one by myself. I was just like, I walked up and was like, hey, I just want to ride a horse. And so unfortunately I lost my ID at the stable, but then they found it later and I was able to get it, but it was really nice. So I love that.
If you don't want to go all the way back to Pokagon, Marmon Valley down in Bellefontaine also does the same thing. So that was one of my first experiences on horses, was going out on a trail ride with my mom and two of my siblings, and then coming back at like, yeah, that was the start of the horse bug. So,
Oh my goodness.
mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to hear about your journey with OMDs because
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you've been through a lot. And one of the things that I'm trying to do with bringing this Make the Connection course to Northwest Ohio is to actually educate and be able to have providers that have this as a service to provide myofunctional therapy, maybe early expansion, tongue tie releases. You know, there are a couple providers, you know, doing tongue tie releases that I'm very aware of. Maybe some others. There's not really anybody doing like true early expansion, and there is just a couple myofunctional therapists. So, yeah, my overarching goal is to kind of change the landscape here, because I think that more people are having difficulties with OMDs, though they may not be aware that that's kind of where they're sitting. And then you've been through the gamut yourself. So I was like, oh, I think that we need to talk to somebody from this area and their experiences so that there's just a more awareness.
Yes, I 100% agree that we need more providers here in the Northwest Ohio area. Personally, I have traveled to Chicago, to Columbus, north of Ann Arbor for treatment, and even just interviewing people as I've gone through the journey. I have a journey, and then my oldest son has a journey, and my youngest daughter has the smallest journey so far, but she's only 4. So we've got some time, and I know her journey will continue on. Like, we'll get my son sorted and then dive further into the youngest. But starting with myself, while pregnant with my daughter, so in 20 into 21, I went in for one of my cleanings. Like, my insurance is great. While pregnant, you get an extra dental cleaning. And which is fantastic, because as a pregnant person, you need really good oral care, and that extra cleaning can help keep things at bay that may be starting. So I went in for my special cleaning of my pregnancy, and I had 2 small cavities they wanted to watch. It's like, okay, delivered her a few months later, and I think she was maybe 6 weeks old. Went back into the dentist, and I now had 18 cavities, and they wanted to do a crown on one tooth. Yeah.
Holy stromboli.
Yes.
2 to 18?
2 to 18 in under 4 months.
Holy crap.
And previously, I'd gone 5 years without needing any dental work. Yes. So I'm a problem solver. I'm sitting in the dentist chair. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I asked the dentist, I'm like, what can cause this? And his response was, you're not brushing at the right angle. I'm sorry, sir, but we don't go from 2 to 18 and a crown in 6 months just because my angle's off. Because if that were the case, there would have been problems in the last 5 years. This isn't adding up. So I got a second opinion down in Columbus from a more holistic provider. And the quote went from what I just told you to, we want to put crowns on all of your molars and fill like 10 cavities. So it's, again, shocked. Yep.
I'd be like, what? How is this even possible?
Right. Well, and the dentist, I haven't drank soda aside from while pregnant. I did have a few Sprites because I was getting sick all the time. I gave up soda 25 years ago, and I've had maybe 10 sodas in 25 years. And the dentist out of Columbus said, your mouth looks like you've been drinking Mountain Dew by the 2-liter every day. Yes. And I'm like, I brush twice a day. I floss. What's going on? And so now I'm even more confused and start doing some digging around online. And I found a mouth consultant. Didn't know they existed. And I hired a mouth consultant to review both treatment plans, because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you go into a dentist, they want to fix it yesterday. So there's high pressure to like say yes. And I went from needing no work, almost no work, to holy crap, I felt like my mouth was getting ripped out and put back in and going to become more of a bionic woman than I already was from my. I swam and played tennis in college, and I have a few surgeries from a few injuries there. I'm like, I don't want to become a bionic person in my mouth. I'm in my 30s. This is ridiculous. And yeah, I was right. So I slowed down and worked with that provider. And I know this is in my notes for later, but one of the balances for anyone going on this journey is to balance dealing with the problem and being set in what your solution is going to be and not getting bullied into a treatment plan that's not right. You still have to accept whatever you choose and be completely like I've looking back and probably changed some of how I handled my own journey or my son's journey, but I can't go back in history and rewrite it. So I'm going to accept it. But I stopped letting myself getting bullied by providers pretty quickly. I don't know. I think it was that mouth consultant who turned me on to a OMT therapist based in Wisconsin who does all remote work. And let me tell you, trying to get pictures where they wanted to see how wide I could open my mouth and stick my fingers in. And like, my husband, bless his heart, we spent a night and he was like, what are you doing to me? Yep. So I started therapy with them. I think I started in October, or signed up with them in October of 21, may have delayed it until January of like actually starting. And then I didn't get my tongue tie personally released until November that year. We spent the whole year strengthening. And part of that is because when I went in to do a CBCT scan to see what we were dealing with structurally in my mouth, we found out I had a deviated septum. So things I would have never known about myself. I played tennis and I swam in college. Swimming, you're not really breathing through your nose. I didn't know, like symptom-wise, I would have never guessed I had a deviated septum. My nose was fairly straight. Like there were no major indicators for it. But it was fairly significant when we got the scan back. He goes, are you aware? And I said, no. So the provider that I used for my tongue tie release set out a game plan of what he wanted to see happen before my ties were released. And I didn't have just a tongue tie. I had a upper lip, a lower lip, a buckle, and then a tongue tie, a posterior tongue tie. So that's a lot to have done in your mouth at one time. And one of the places I did get pressured was I felt with running everything through insurance and having a higher deductible, I wanted it all in 1 year. So I did my deviated septum surgery, and then 2 weeks later, I did my tongue tie release. Do not recommend for anyone.
No, that sounds awful.
Yeah. So I highly, highly recommend letting your body settle if capable. And it was kind of an aha moment because my tongue tie provider wasn't even in network. So it didn't I still paid out of pocket. Like had I put him first, I would have had the rest of insurance would have picked everything else up on the back end. But lesson learned.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Gotta love insurance.
It was expensive. Oh yes. And as much we need awareness, and then you need and provider education and the ability to service the individuals in the area. And then we need the insurance to catch up because the whole system is broken for how many people have it. So any questions, I guess, on a little bit of how it took my journey into that?
So I guess what did they explain during this mouth consultation of the cause of all of the cavities?
One of the things, that's a very good point. people that have tongue and lip ties end up becoming mouth breathers without meaning to, because we cannot get our tongue up into the roof of our mouth how it should. No matter what I did physically, my tongue, like I could kind of get it up there, but it would never stay. And it, with posterior tongue ties, especially at night, if this is my mouth, and I guess I can't do it invertedly, but my tongue would fall back down my throat, which would open my mouth, and I would snore. And so you have a lot of air flowing through your mouth where we're not built to pull most of our air in through our mouth. We are built to pull our air in through our nose. And when you become a mouth breather, your pH balance gets off. So I have become slightly psycho, according to my kids, on what products we put into our mouth, being very xylitol based focused, and especially from Birch xylitol, and which meant I changed up our teeth products. We swapped out our gums and our mints, and my kids they've recently found like bubble gum, or the roll of bubble gum, and my son has it hidden in his baseball backpack. Like if she doesn't see it, she doesn't know, but then I give him a mint with xylitol, and I'm like, here you go, eat your bubble gum. But I'm gonna fix that. And including with every once in a while, like after dinner or lunches, I'll give my kids a scoop of xylitol to kind of pull. Instead of using oil pulling, we transition to xylitol pulling, where you take a little bit of xylitol in your mouth and function like you're pulling with oil. And then instead of needing to spit it out because it's coconut oil or sesame oil, you can swallow it because it's sweet. And I don't know, I gag easily with oil pulling. It wasn't until the gentleman that I used to release my tongue tie, his assistant kind of walked me through her journey, and hers was faster than mine even. She went from 0 cavities to full veneers on her front teeth in less than 4.5 months due to her pH. Like once your pH is off in your mouth, you're fighting a battle, and an uphill battle at that. So the tongue tie, holding my mouth in a way that I had minimal control over, and then needing to strengthen my tongue in order to get it to naturally. I'm still working on it. I'm 3.5 years post tongue tie, or 3 years post tongue tie, and I still have to mentally work on keeping my tongue up. And with my son, who's 1.5 years out of his tongue tie release, I still walk in the room and yell mouth or tongue. And if I find him like 3 times, I'll go grab a bread clip and make him hold it in his lips, because it puts you in a position. That or Mayo Munchie, and I normally have more bread clips than I have his Mayo Munchie around. Yeah. It was a trick from it's a trick from the OMT, is to give him the bread clips. So we're at minimal risk of him swallowing it. He is 8, so hopefully that one's a little bit on survival of the fittest, I guess, if he goes to swallow it.
Oh no.
We haven't had an issue yet, so but he'll come back after 5 months and be like, all right, I'm ready to keep my tongue up where it belongs. Thanks, Mom. And then saunters away. So that's kind of what best guess at this point in my journey, I can say, is kind of how things started falling apart and what really led to that quick decay and having to be in more of a offensive mode in the dental work that we had done. I did have my mouth tested to see if I had any of the severe bacteria, because there are a couple of strains of bacteria that can just ruin a mouth, and I was cleared of all of those. So then I focused on pH balancing and keeping my mouth at a very neutral spot.
And this was all essentially kind of on the recommendation of the holistic dentist then?
That was actually off the mouth consultant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, shockingly.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, I think, 25 years of dental hygienist studying and watched the industry and kind of picked up on, similar to you, we have an issue, what's going on. And she's created a whole game plan and support group online, because right now it's finding people like you and I did on Facebook and having conversations, or a Facebook group over here or over there, and weeding through tons of posts or comments and trying to find out what's an emotional reaction versus factual reaction. And it can feel like a lot. And I am the type of person who I have a problem and I'm going to take a sledgehammer at it. And that may not be my right tool, but I'm going to sledgehammer until it's all dealt with. And so I've learned over the last few years we're slowing down on some things. My son developed a tongue thrust recently, and in recently I mean in the last year. And I keep delaying doing the OMT therapy on it because I'm like, oh, do I want to wrestle with an 8-year-old on more therapy right now? And I keep delaying it. I'm like, we'll do it in 6 months. And so it may come, like, we're getting to the point it's going to have to get dealt with. But even the OMT therapist likes them to be closer to 10 on tongue thrust and having a solid understanding of why we're fixing it versus just go do these exercises because mom said so at 6. So.
Yeah. Well, I think too, like, I know for my son, we tried to do something online and it just wasn't the right avenue for him, especially for that, like doing the mouth and things like that. If there was more resources in town, I hear of people very young being able to follow the exercises and to go through a treatment plan. But sometimes it takes that therapist sitting with you or showing you exactly what to do or putting your hands in your mouth to like have you feel, if we're just seeing it and trying to make it work. Like I did an episode with somebody who's a speech therapist, but she was showing me how to do something with her tongue. And I was like, I literally couldn't do it, but I think if she sat next to me, if she was touching, when we involve all of the senses, touching, like the feeling, the sight, I'm trying to think of some of the other ones right now.
Sounds even.
So, yeah. I mean, like these things, the seeing it, all the things together is a better picture of, yes, he probably would be able to follow that a lot better than relying on a picture online, And so I don't know, and that's, again, there's these limitations of the area in which we live in, that's great that you are able to do this virtual therapy with somebody. But man, it's such a bummer that you couldn't have somebody here that's able to do that.
Oh, I 100% agree. My son would have probably locked in, like the days we did get to see the therapist in person, because we did a couple of days meeting up with the dentist that he was seeing for his tie release. And it was night and day. Like she could get him to focus. We were done in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And I'm sure you ran into this, but like I did a lot of my therapy and my son's therapy in wintertime, and lights are hard in Northwest Ohio to keep where you almost need like a photography light bulb sitting there because you're trying to see into somebody's mouth and get the right angle, and it ends up with some awkward on the screen, like you're almost kissing or eating your camera on your phone or your laptop, and you're like, what did we just do? And do I even have it correct? And yeah, I would love to have more providers in the area that we could run in after school and have a conversation with versus jump on a computer. Not like I do love, like we loved all of our therapists, but if I could clone a few and put them in the area, it'd be even better.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So your first initial was like, I have all these cavities that are like ramping up like crazy. Mm-hmm. I need to figure out what the problem is. And then you do this consultation, you realize you have a tongue tie, you do the myofunctional therapy for a good chunk of time beforehand, mm-hmm. before the release. And then, so after the release, did you explore expansion at all in that?
I was like very on the cusp of needing expansion beforehand. So my provider and I came to the agreement that I would get a night mouth guard that has the 2 rails that won't let my jaw drop back. And with doing like at-home sleep studies before and after getting it, it actually did minimal. Like Excuse me, sorry. Still recovering from a crud last week. Um, the expand or that my night mouth guard didn't do as much as I would hoped, and so I ended up not being very consistent about wearing it to bed, because as soon as you pop those in, you're not really talking to your spouse or significant other anymore. A kid comes in the middle of the night and has an accident, you're trying to pop it out, and it's worse than my son's expansion, that thing that can pop in and out. And I'm like, yep, I didn't feel any different wearing it to not wearing it most nights, except it more made my jaw hurt as I was trying to hold it in the same spot. And yeah, I know that dentist would beat me over the head to say it's best for you to have it in. And then I had a crown fail a little over a year ago, and then which led me to my current spot in my journey, where I'm now wearing braces to straighten my teeth and get a little dental expansion and make a little more room for my tongue. I had looked at a few different options, and my brother had Sarpe done, so we are definitely a family of more narrow palates and needing expansions. I don't know if he had a tongue tie release in there, because his was all done surgically, and getting him to talk was difficult. But I personally wasn't ready to have someone take a saw. For the people listening to this that aren't familiar with that surgery, they basically take a saw and slice your palate with it, and yeah, then put in a rapid palate expander. I wasn't ready for that. I was willing to do the step down, which is it Marpe?
I think so.
Where they put in a rapid palate expander and slice, like put slits in your mouth, upper palate, to get it to then start expanding. But even then, there's back and forth on uneven expansion issues and vision issues. And to need 2 to 4 millimeters of space for my tongue, I didn't necessarily feel like that was the risk I wanted to take, when I felt like we could get that with just braces. So last fall, the root canal that failed, that tooth came out and braces went on this spring. So I have 15 to 18 months in braces, and then I'll be putting an implant in to save that space, because for me, every millimeter counts, every half millimeter counts in palate. In my journey of finding an orthodontist to work with, I did have a provider who told me airway focused is just a fad. And he would straighten my teeth for me, but being worried about my airway is not a reason to get expansion. And I bit my tongue, because I was like, sir, you're going to sound like the doctors who were bloodletting with leeches 200 years ago. Were like, that's what this is going to sound like in 10 more years, I think. And you're in your 40s as a provider. You have this part of your practice will come back to you. I shook his hand and walked out of his office before things got salty. Yeah. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Going home now. So that's kind of like to wrap up like where I am in my journey and what I have left, providing nothing else comes out of left field for me.
Now, I do have a question. So in this, did you do any kind of body work? Any craniosacral therapy, CFT, myofascial release?
Yes. I did craniosacral therapy and myofascial release coming into my tongue tie and lip tie release. My provider just moved out of the area. So
Bummer.
I know, I was going to go she gave me some recommendations. But I just haven't gotten back into it with the braces went on in March. So for me to come back around and start circling back around on body work, it's been family focused and getting to my appointments to get the braces put on. And then adjusted has been my max right now. We're fairly consistent in our chiropractic work. Like I stay in consistent chiropractic, which we attribute to helping my son in his journey of not needing as much craniosacral work, because technically he's had 2 lip tie releases, one as a baby at 13 months, as we hit a day and it was like his front 2 teeth popped in, and we were either going to be done nursing that day or we're going to figure out why it hurts so bad all of a sudden. And he had a lip tie released a few days later, which then saved our journey for a few more months until he was like, I'm done with you, Mom. I'm out. Like, I found cow's milk. I'm peace out. I'm gone. Like, okay. We made it over the year mark. Would have loved to give you two, but when you're saying I'm done, I guess I'm out. Like, I'm not going to force that for you. You know,
I love that. You know, kids, it's never on your timeline. You know, they do whatever they want. You're like, come on.
yep. You set these goals. You're like, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And looking back, even in that journey, right when he was born, there was clicking that should have been an indicator to get him in. But even 8.5, almost 9 years ago, tongue ties were talked about a little bit in this area, but not to the extent that you see the chatter online right now. And I wasn't prepared. Like, it wasn't enough of a headache to get into an office. We were able to get through our nursing journey, and had I realized what it did developmentally to him, and like causing a narrow palate and not getting the airway he needed, which then so many kids and parents we're not taught this, but when kids can't breathe well at night, which is where you see a lot of the problems with kids on airway, they're not resting. And then you end up with these kids who are overtired. And what kind of behavior do we see from overtired kids? They're hyperactive. They can't focus. Like, they're not like adults who just kind of like, or teenagers that do the whole fall asleep. They kind of spin in their chairs, and you see kids getting in trouble at school. How many parents over the next 10 to 15 years are going to look back and go, was my kid's behavior where we were butting heads and I was trying to get him to calm down because he didn't get good sleep that night, and he wasn't breathing effectively? I think there's gonna be a whole bunch of us parents who, like, first of all, it's not our fault. Give yourself a lot of grace, moms, because there's not the education. Our pediatricians aren't talking about it. Our dentists aren't talking about it. I mean, even the holistic dentist I saw in Columbus didn't let me know I had a tongue tie.
Wow. Yeah, there's just these huge gaps.
Yeah. And the concept of, if you're not an infant, you don't need released. That is probably the biggest fallacy in this genre of healthcare right now. I squared off with the ENT that did my deviated septum surgery, because he's like, stick your tongue out. And I could, because where my tie was is posterior, so I could stick my tongue out at him. He goes, you're not tied, you're just a little restricted. Okay, well, hiring you to fix my nose and my septum, I'm not hiring you to fix my tongue, because I want somebody who understands how my tongue should functionally work. And it doesn't sound like, sir, you are trained in that. And that was part of my journey through this, of like putting my team in place. I used somebody in Chicago for my tongue tie release, a local ENT for my deviated septum. I used remote OMT therapy, and my orthodontics are within an hour of Toledo, which is, I feel very blessed for. So
yeah,
I had cogs in a wheel, and I very much have told dentists and different people, this isn't your space in my cog. Like, I'm hiring you for this spot right here, and you're going to stay here, or I'll find someone else to replace you. And it shocks them, because they're not used to their patients pushing back and knowing what they want.
Yeah, I think I do. I think that that's a problem in healthcare for sure. Just that whatever the healthcare is, but you know that, yeah, I completely, I tell people all the time, like, and my patients, like, no, you hired them. Like, they're here to help you. You can fire them. Like, you can go somewhere else. You can get a second opinion. You can get a third opinion. You know, I think we've just been taught that if they're the expert, if they're above us, we just need to listen to what they say. And the truth is that you know your body better than anybody else. And so when you are with somebody and you get a feeling, you need to listen to that feeling, because most of the time that's right. Not what they're saying, not what you're hearing. You got to go with what your gut is telling you.
Yep. And like, I've seen it not just in my mouth, but even like, there's so many so many people can relate to that whole concept of their providers talking down to them. It's like, you can walk away. When somebody tells me I had to do this because my doctor said so, and I'm like, no, no, you don't. You can politely decline and say, thank you for your opinion. I'm going to decline that service today, and we're going to end our appointment and walk out the door. And it's okay. It feels weird. Oh my gosh. When the ENT and I squared off, he's probably 6'4", 6'5". He's not a small person. I'm 5'5". He towered over me, even sitting down, and I was like, oh, I'm telling this very educated man that I am using him for this specific purpose. But then as he talked and I watched how his tongue moved, I'm like, oh, you're also tied, sir. But I couldn't, like, it's not my place to let him know. He can figure, if he wants to go down that journey and that road, he'll figure it out. But it was one of those moments where it was so surreal sitting across from him, because he was talking down to me, but I'm like, oh, but you need the same thing I'm doing for myself. And we traded books, and he had me read, and I did it. Breathe. I don't know if you've read that one.
I started it, and then I was in that like total anxiety state of like, oh my God, my kids and all this stuff. And I had to like stop, because I was just crying all the time.
There's a lot of grace through this journey, whether it's you going on it or your kids going on it, because as resources come out and you start realizing it, it's hard, because I feel like at points in times I failed my kids. And that's an emotion, and that's on me to deal with as much as it is on me to deal with of feeling failed by the dental industry across the board. And it's a lot to chew off. And as parents, we can't let ourselves beat it up. And yes, I chunked my way through it. And I took in the book Tongue Tied by a dentist out of, I think, Alabama, who went on the journey because of his kids. Like, I highly recommend it. He wasn't into tongue ties until his own kids had problems. And so then he became a big advocate of getting kids released. So we're all on a journey.
Yeah. And I think, it's literally like every single person I've ever talked to, like the times where they were in those experiences that we say like have the most guilt, or we feel the worst about, or we're like, oh, I just never wish this ever happened. Those are the things that really bring you forward as a person and a human, and to be able to share information with other people. So, some of those where we think that they're just horrible times, those are our most beautiful gifts that we've been given. But you have to be aware that it actually is a gift to be able to share with other people.
Yeah. And it takes a lot to be able to table the emotions and be able to, okay, I'm going to deal with this today, and not let it wake you up at 2 a.m. in the morning when your kid, something we haven't chatted about yet, and it's come into light in my journey a little bit late. It's one area that I actually have a lot of guilt on, because I am very hypermobile. And I did not put the correlation on pain and mouth pain on it until after my son had his tie release. And he is also hypermobile. And so how those of us who have the hypermobility in our life deal with some of the pain, it's very different. And there were definitely Arnica didn't help my son. Tylenol, I finally broke down and did Genexa Tylenol, and that didn't help my son. I tried children's Motrin with nothing helped my son. I had some liquid lidocaine left over from my tongue tie release that was medical grade. If he let me near his mouth, that didn't help him. We more than once sent a video text message to his therapist saying, I need help. He's on the floor crying. and we need to do our stretches and our exercises to keep this from reattaching, because I don't think I'll ever get him back in the chair to do this for a third time for parts of his mouth. So help me help him, where the same thing of he's sobbing, I'm crying. My sister called me on the phone one time, was like, are your neighbors going to call the cops on you?
Aw.
And I was like, I hope not. She's like, how often do you have to do this? I'm like, 3 to 4 times a day. And by the time we get done with round one, round two's on its heels. And like, the mom guilt that came in with that, that was huge. And I still don't even understand all the way through on how the hypermobility plays into the pain and how to address it. But it definitely ties in with how, especially children, perceive the numbing agents, and it can actually make it feel painful to them. So even though my son was well doped up in his mouth while he had his tongue tie release, he thought he was feeling it. And it wasn't until we got out of there and I started digging into some stuff, I'm like, oh, I understand. Like, I now get it. But it wasn't something that we talked about from a very well-known provider going into it. Like, that's been in the last 6-8 months that we've kind of dug into the hypermobility and how it affects pain, especially in our mouth, for my son.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons why I was like, oh, I got to bring you on here and we need to talk about this, because when I had my tongue released, the worst my pain was a 5 out of 10. And that was immediately after the anesthetic wore off and when I would do one certain exercise. All the other time it was a 2 out of 10. And the other girls that had gone at the same time, their pain didn't get bad at all. And so when you had mentioned this hypermobility and this pretty severe pain that you guys were experiencing, I thought that was like, wait a second, we need a different perspective here, because I'm not doing a good service by saying, hey, it doesn't actually hurt, when for certain populations of people, it might be really bad. And to be aware of that, and maybe how to be mindful and, and have have like a toolbox of things that you can do just in case.
Mm-hmm. It kind of hit me out of the ball. Like, it hit me sideways. I have, from my injuries in college, I dislocated my shoulder. And when my shoulder dislocated, my top rib popped out of alignment, wrapped around veins and arteries in my collarbone, and flipped a 180. So at 22 years old, I had a surgery where they went under my armpit, snaked up around my heart, and chopped my little top rib out of my body, released a couple of muscles. And so that is supposed to be one of the most painful surgeries you can go through. I was back to work in 2 weeks. Going through the stretches for 4 weeks after my tie released, I'll take that shoulder surgery all day long. Go pull out my other top rib. I will go on passive movement for 3 months versus, shockingly, my buckle ties were my worst. And I wouldn't have thought that. But as I've dug in, and it's very similar, friends that have had their releases were very much like you. 2 days later, they were ready to go back to school. Or even that same day, their kids were back in their school. And my son was a hot wreck. He had his release done on a Thursday, and we were barely able to get him back into school on a Monday. And I was like, I need a school note for this. And the dentist wouldn't give it for any day but what we were in the office. And I'm like, this kid is having actual pain. Like, he has a high pain tolerance. We're struggling. And I am fairly nonsense mom on this. Like, pick yourself up. Let's go. Like, your arm's not hanging by threads. Let's keep playing. Let's go. And here my kid was like sobbing on the corner and not able to come back around. So yeah, it's a part of my journey that's new, and I don't have a full understanding on it yet. But I'm learning on how things do affect people that are hypermobile, and what does that mean to each degree. On hypermobility, just like a lot of other things, is a spectrum, and where it affects some people very minimally, others I think the way to kind of put your brain around how mine affects me is that I feel like one tight ball of muscle 90% of the time, but I can still dislocate parts of my body without a second thought because my muscles are working to wrap around my different joints and hold them in as my ligaments and tendons are a little bit looser and they just have a little extra give. And yeah, it changes how I approach injuries and weightlifting and pain tolerances and what I reach for versus what I used to reach for. And it is, again, another journey that my poor husband is like, you're doing what now? So do I. Like, yeah.
I know. I gotta love the husbands. They're like, they're just, I love them, but sometimes they're not seeing like the full big picture. I think as women, we're so in tune to our bodies and we know what we need and we know where we need to pursue and all of those things. And men just kind of like do what they do over here. And, and then sometimes I don't even say what I'm doing anymore because it just doesn't make any sense. And it's okay. That's not his deal. I know the one day, gosh, he mentioned something about even just like a diet or water. I think he said something about water. Like, there's plastic in our water. And I'm like, I bought a water filter and like a good Berkey one in like 2020. That's why I tell you, stop drinking from the tap. Like, you need to drink from the water filter that we have in our house. And he was like, huh, like, what?
I guess the PSA to the husbands out there, one, when your wife comes to you and she is trying to like rationalize, because I don't know about you, but like as I was evaluating for my son and my daughter, like what do we do for treatment? Does this make sense? Is this the right time? Is this the right provider? Is this the right option? And my husband's eyes glaze over and he's like, I care, but I trust you. So just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, should you just trust me? Like, yes, I'm their mom, but can I get some other feedback in the middle of this loop? And so a few trusted friends who I now will reach out to and ask them questions and like, hey, can you be my sounding board on this one?
Yeah.
But it doesn't stop the husbands and the men in the lives to dig in a little bit with their wives and take that mental burden of, okay, you're really worried about this. Let's walk, even if you just listen to pros and cons, guys, and give us what you think might be a good option. Be like, do we align? I think is a really good spot because otherwise, yeah, you leave the wives off to ourselves and you can't complain when the HSA is completely empty then.
I love that. It's so true.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to just mention that go back a little bit. So you're talking about the children and when they don't have airway, they have all these, they could potentially, or that could be the root cause of like behavior issues in school and their learning and all that stuff. And I know that, my son it's June. So I think my oldest has been on his expansion journey for like a year and a half about, and he's to the point now, there was an immediate, like in the first month, there was a change. Like he stopped snoring like crazy. So I was like, oh my God, thank God this is working. But now it's to the point where he wakes up and you can tell he has a lot more energy. But I say, like, how did you sleep? And he's like, I slept really good. And, for so long, sometimes he wouldn't even tell me. We'd go to the doctor and they'd say, how you doing? And he's like, I just don't sleep at all at night. And I'm like, I go in and you're sleeping. He's like, no, I don't think I slept at all. And it's like, oh, it just like breaks your heart. Because sleep is so important. And I know that when I was growing up in high school, even college, like when I knew I had a big test the night before, I was still in bed at 9:30. Like I knew that there wasn't going to be anything that was coming in my brain that wasn't already there. I needed my sleep. And so that's what I got. So I know for me, sleep is so important for my brain, my cognition, my entire body, my healing, everything. And that when your kid is not experiencing that, yeah, it's awful.
Yeah. So was the question in there that like, what
No.
did I notice in my son? Or just,
No, I was just making a
okay.
comment.
I would 100% agree with all of it because like when we started Sawyer's expansion, it was the questions with the provider were, how is he sleeping at night? Is he having accidents? How is his behavior in school? And I had never correlated it until partway through his journey with this. And you're like, huh, oh. And yes, kind of the same thing where he had an initial like massive jump into sleeping. He has turned into almost like a farmer's kid, which we do come from farm mentality, but like I am past the point of waking up at 6 a.m. because like if I don't have a reason to be out of bed early, I don't want to be out of bed. But my kid is up and refreshed and ready to go, which I love. Um, but I've noticed almost with the anxiety that can come out of little boys and the calmness and having his appliance in, if he's having a really rough emotional day, we'll have him pop it in and it hits up on his vagus nerve. So what, again, for those of you who are tuning in, you may not be aware, but like if you can get a kid to put their tongue up on the roof of their mouth and rub back and forth, that stimulates your vagus nerve, which can help calm. So when there's a pressure up there, you're getting a consistent calm. They're being told, or their body is being told to calm down, like over and over again. And yes, that was huge for me. I try not to open up the door for anxiety, but man, I don't know where some of it comes from these kids who don't have social media and don't have all the influencing factors right now. But if he gets spun sideways, man, he is in tears and missing our Great Dane that left us 4 years ago. And that's kind of my cue of like, okay, let's get that back in your mouth. Let's get your body to reset here and ground you back out, because otherwise I'm fighting with him on getting things in play and keeping him standing. It ends up with him on the floor crying, and it's heartbreaking. And to know like, hey, there is a root cause to this and we've improved it is even cooler to know that, hey, I can get through this small tantrum. Gets us that much closer to the flip side and being able to continue to help him regulate as an adult even further and give him the tools in the future. And tools meaning a wider airway where he can get more oxygen into his brain.
Yeah, and I think this is perfect that you're talking about this because, you know, as a parent, you know, or other parents out there, a lot of times you just see the behavioral things. You go to the doctor and they're like, how about we try this med, you know? And like, you know, when you're looking at things more holistically, we really are trying to get back to like, what is the root cause of this? Like, what is the physical thing that's happening? What is the true physical thing that's causing this? What is the emotional piece? You know, it's, for me, sometimes I'm thinking, what is the spiritual piece of this as well? And so when we can really dive into that root cause, so like, you know, my kid's going crazy, he's yelling, he's screaming, he's wild, you know, like maybe we do need to take a step back and say, okay, let's look at the body, let's look at the nervous system, let's look at the mouth, you know, like where really is this coming from? Is there really a physical thing that's happening that we can do something about instead of just covering up symptoms for something that you're not going to just be able to cover up?
It's huge. I'm watching, and in the last 5-7 years, there is like the onion is being peeled back. And there are some old time providers out there that will talk about how your body can't heal until it feels safe. And that may not just be from the thing that was making it not feel safe is removed. Like it may mean more. It may be 20 years down the road before your body calms down. I think that's hard for a lot of us to be like, well, we removed the thing that was hurting you. You're safe. You should be like, you're good, right? Like the hardest thing I think for me to stop from flying out of my mouth with my kids is you're good. Because they may not be they may not be in a dangerous position at that moment, but their body may not be good. And it's even harder when they turn around and go, Mom, I need a minute. I I'm struggling. I need you to wait. And before I give them further instruction, and as a parent to even be patient enough to be like, okay, this isn't life or death. This is emptying the dishwasher. I can wait, let my son or daughter regulate before we address the next thing, and not being in such a hurry as an adult to rattle off 6 instructions and expect their little brains to hold on to it. They never will. But if we can honor their bodies, which again, you talk to my dad and his generation and they're like, come on, that's crap. We're fine. I'm like, yeah, but you taught us to shove all of our emotions down, and eventually you bubble over, and hopefully it's in a safe spot. And I want to give my kids the tools to not have to bubble over emotionally. And it affects it ties into our mouths and into, like, for those of you who have, like, the connective tissue from your tongue all the way through your body. I know some of you are like, what's the big deal? But if you pulled up a infant and show like the skeletal of how everything's connected, your tongue fascia connects all the way down to your big toe. That's your entire body effectively is connected. So when you have restrictions up at the top, like, and it's pulling on everything, your body can't settle and it can't be safe. And how can we expect it to function at the top of its level? Or how much better can it function if you're already high functioning? Could you level up again? And what does that look like? Like, that was one of the things I choked down of, man, I made it fairly far in my athletic career, but could it have been further? Could I have gone and done more? Had I known this was part of my physical being and I dealt with it when I was young and then healed, what would it have looked like? So, I mean, not getting stuck in what ifs, but those are all major things in this realm of, as you're pulling it all together, it's not a simple fix with, oh, my tongue's restricted, I need more movement. Is it worth it? It's expensive. And yes, if we can break these barriers down and get more providers trained, the cost can come down and make it more affordable for the whole world. Like, this used to be done by our midwives. They used to keep a little pinky nail sharp. And when a baby was born, before mom even grabbed it, pop their mouth open. If it was restricted, they'd slit it with their sharp pinky and hand the baby to the mom. We lost that because that's not how a lot of medical deliveries work anymore. But it was a lot more available at that point in time because the midwives just did it and were wild. But you have, like, I want to see every little kid that you want run down the road have the ability to have not just a release, because the release is important, but everything you put into place around it. The myofunctional therapy, the craniosacral therapy, like all of it, getting a therapist in to strengthen your tongue. Every piece of that pie is so essential to having a successful journey. And without one, I feel like you see so many people, they regress and they go through 2 or 3 releases and it just turns into a heartbreaking story versus a story of fixing my past and going forward and being able to look down the road.
I just want to say, when you were talking about all this stuff, I am so proud. I feel like a lot of people put our generation down for switching jobs or things like that. But I am so in awe, and it kind of makes me emotional. Sometimes I'm good at this, sometimes I'm not. But like this mindfulness that we have of emotions and dealing with things that are coming to us, you know, like you said, like with your dad, like we were taught to just shove everything down. And I see so many parents now who are healing through their children, essentially, to say, it is safe for you to be like this. It wasn't safe for me. It's safe for you, and I support you through this, and I hope that you can have a better life than what I experienced in this realm, you know? And so I just want to say, like, it's so beautiful to hear you talk that way, because I like know how hard that is, and that you're doing that is just so amazing. I know I don't know you very well, but like, I just want to say I'm so proud of you. Like, that's so amazing.
Thank you. And I should also clarify, like my parents did a fantastic job with the knowledge they had. Like that the generation above us, you guys didn't necessarily fail us because the info wasn't there. And that's I've had a long conversations with my mom and my sisters as they are going through the similar journey with their kids. We didn't have the internet when I was born. My mom wanted a hand manual for when I came home. I was her firstborn. She'd never changed a diaper before I was born. She was an only essentially because her brother and sister were out of the house by the time she was born. She had no clue about babies, and she figured it out and went along. But our generation, we're getting the information, and I'm excited for the next generation who it's going to become second nature with as babies are born. It's not dealt with isn't the right word, but it's approached and it's part of your care. And I will say the one pediatrician did stick her fingers in my daughter's mouth and to see if she had a tongue tie. I'm like, ma'am, thank you. You're like, I appreciate you looking. It was released at 4 days old. And I know this is not this is not your wheelhouse. You can kindly remove your fingers out of her mouth. We have a whole team in place doing therapy for her. So I do see improvements in the medical world, and I want to see more coming. And that's why I like meeting with you. And there are times as in my journey where I don't open my mouth when talking with people because I don't know that I feel like everybody else is ready to hear it. And being willing to talk and like you've alluded more and more to throughout our time on the physical journey, the spiritual journey. And yeah, there were so many nights I sat up and praying and like, is this the right move? Help this heal, help us come out of this. What did I just do to my kid? Like, this is supposed to make it better, but I feel like I failed him again because he's in pain. And yet I know, like, I watched other moms and struggle and see there are times I can be an overshare, but then there's times where I'm like, they don't want to hear from me. They don't want me, like, I see the issue hitting their household, but they're not going to want to hear from me. And it's even continuing to break that stigma down with our friends and being able to come to them lovingly, like, hey, I'm seeing this and I love you. And I just want you to do a little research and hear, and then stepping back. And if you do reach out to a friend, be willing for them to take a different journey, because with some of my friends that I have chatted with, they took the information and went a different route. And I don't blame them. They did the best for their kid at that moment. And overall, I think this generation's doing a lot to change the future for our next generation and it's exciting, I guess. Sorry.
It is.
Here I am rambling.
No, it is. It's super exciting. And I'm here for it for sure. It's really great. Okay. So real quick, I do want to ask you this. So because there has been like a lot of ups and downs, but how did this experience improve your life?
I always had a tension headache, kind of sitting it like that, just kind of sitting through and like down and around. And it still flares up from time to time, but just the straight tension in my life and not understanding where it was coming from. I have stepped away from traditional shoes and gone to more barefoot shoes. And that is also I had a trauma-induced bunion. I know this is almost a little TMI, guys, but I kicked a rock and I had a bunion pop up afterwards. But my other foot is showing signs of a bunion developing. And I think some of that comes back not just from wearing tiny shoes that squish my flat foot, which all of this kind of comes together as you piecemeal it all apart. Tongue ties and flat feet and hypermobility, it's all kind of in this one great big ugly beautiful bucket. And while I've had a lot of stress from my head down into my feet, it's going away. It's not like there are some people who I wish I was trying to get a good picture the day before I had my release and like how far my head would tip back to like how much further it could go. I never could quite get my husband to play well enough with it. But even just being able to tip my head back without feeling like it stops and hinges, there are little things that I'm discovering as I'm a year, 2, 3 years out on the shifts in my body. And as I'm getting a little bit more room, even with the few months in braces, I'm being able to more comfortably hold my tongue up and what it all means to my overall health and getting more energy back. So I don't know if I have one like, oh my gosh moment. It's lots of little things that keep adding up. And I think it's easier to see my son more so than myself. But for me, I think it's the little improvements I've seen over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really great. Now, did you experience any particular miracles along the way?
I keep going back to my son, and I come from, my mom hates us because she hates labels. I am 99% sure that most of my family has ADHD to some degree of extravagant, like, we're on different parts of the spectrum, I'm sure. Solely undiagnosed. But watching the mental focus come back in for my son and some of it coming out, he was a victim. I don't want to call him a victim, but he was a COVID baby. He came home for a couple of years, wasn't out with a lot of peers. And so kindergarten was a rough start, even though we held him till he was just turned 6. And we had some ups and downs. Had an amazing, amazing teacher who partnered with us. And never once did I have somebody come back to me and say, you need to drug your kid to get him to behave. And I think that is just a testament to what you can do physically for your kids, having the right school and the right partner on their teaching, and who was like, his teacher in kindergarten was willing to let him stand at his desk and do his work. And that made a huge difference. And as he's now rounding into 3rd grade, his ability to sit still longer is coming there. Wasn't an overnight switch, but it's been a quick progression for him. And I'm not dreading a phone call from the school. I'm not dreading notes coming home as much as I could care less about behavioral charts. He stayed in the green 90% of the year, if not higher than even in 2nd grade where he'd get clipped down a little bit. But I've also raised him, and sorry, teachers, I want him to know how to get in a little bit of trouble with you so he doesn't come out of school afraid of getting in trouble as an adult like myself. So I've encouraged him to push the buttons a little bit, like not be afraid of getting clipped down, because at the end of the day, you came home on orange, okay? You're not suspended, cool.
Yeah.
So I think I'm more excited about his journey than mine. I'm long for the ride. I'm doing the best to fix my body, but it's exciting to watch the next generation have a 30-year start on me, which is huge.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I mean, just since my release, there's been so many changes, and it's easy to go, man, what if this was that long ago, But you got to trust the timing, that's you had all the information when you needed it to be able to realize all the things on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that. Well, all right. I'm going to ask you the final question.
Okay.
We've had a beautiful conversation. I'm so thankful. So what's your advice for helping others see the miracles in their lives?
I would say standing still, just stopping so you can see it. Our world is so crazy and it is so fast moving right now. Like, we're in June, and I literally choked on the word June a few weeks ago because it feels like we're back in January where I was taking my daughter out to ski for the 2nd time in her life. And so if we don't intentionally stand still, we're going to miss the miracles, because it's not until a provider would ask me, what do you notice differently, that I was even allowing myself to stop. And that is I think one thing our generation needs to do better on is stopping to stand and accept what's changing around us, because otherwise we miss it. I mean, moms were all guilty of dinners on the stove, the phone's ringing, the babies are crying because they needed fed 20 minutes ago, and there's a work email that dings. But if we take 5 seconds and just stop and just let the world settle around us, it's amazing to notice the changes and being present. And I think that's one of the things I'm balancing between getting the pictures of the kids and just letting the memories set in my brain, because for a long time there, I was relying on my camera, and I don't know that my brain was getting the pictures that I needed it to get. So now I'm on the balance that out of get enough pictures versus let the world do it for me. So
yeah,
I think that's my piece.
I love it. That's a beautiful point. I wrote down, and oh, this is so bad, but yeah, you're moving. Like you go to work, you get home, you're doing dinner, you're getting laundry, whatever, all this stuff, animals. And then there'd be some nights where I'm like, I don't even know that I looked in, like, I didn't truly look into the eyes of my kids. I looked at them, but I don't know that I like physically made a connection with them. And it's like, why? Like, why? All this stuff doesn't matter. They're the thing that matters. We matter. That connection with humans matter.
It's why my house isn't currently clean, and I could write my name in cursive on my desk and dust in a corner, because I'm choosing to spend some of that time that I would chase dust mites with letting my kids be like, I get a 4-year-old once in their lifetime. And that's one of my favorite ages. And my daughter is so wildly unhinged, that wildly independent, strong, and I want to be there for every moment that she comes by. And I have enough time that has to be locked up for work right now that when we get off of work, I want to just stand and be present. I don't know if you follow them. Dad Chats Online.
No.
One, go follow him. Sorry for the anxiety you're going to get, because he will start his reels and he will fill up a cup of coffee without a lid, like old school coffee mug to the brim. So watching it, I kind of listen a lot of times. But he, every night with his kids, asks them one question before bed. And that's, what do you want to tell me about your day? And that has stuck with me on, it's not mom and dad's agenda. What's on their brain? And he said it opened up his daughter, his relationship with his daughter, and it's done similar things with my family.
I love that. I'm writing it down right now. I'm literally, what do you want to tell me about your day?
Gotcha. Yeah.
I love it.
It puts them in charge, because you never know when it's a butterfly that they had a concern about, or maybe somebody's not being kind at school and they finally have the courage to tell you. But if you ask for 3 or 4 different things about their day, their little brains can't handle it.
Yeah. Oh, Julia, thank you so much for talking to me. I love this. We went OMDs, we went parenting, we went just so many beautiful things. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed, I can't wait to officially run into you in town.
I know, right? We'll have to get together. I have a 3.5-year-old and then a 7 and a 9. So I feel like our kids are similar in age. So we'll definitely have to do that.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you. Have a great day.
Same. Enjoy.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Miracle in Time. If you would like to explore a theme or know someone perfect for this podcast, please fill out a form on yourlightllc.com/podcast. If you would like to learn more about my services, you can visit the website at yourlightllc.com. I want you to remember that with all life's ups and downs, you are divinely held and guided throughout your journey. Don't miss out on this miracle in time.